No idea where she is.
Yeah, I never imagined my mom would disappear.
You have no idea where she is. 1 second she was right there with him in that small dinghy cutting through the dark waters of the Bahamas, and the next, she was gone. Lynette Hooker, 55 years old, a mother, a passionate sailor, a woman who had finally found the life she always dreamed of living on the ocean, vanished into the night on April 4th, 2026. Her husband Brian says it was a tragic accident. He says the wind picked up, the seas got choppy, and she simply bounced off the back of their rigid hull dinghy. But as the days turned into weeks and now over a month has passed, more and more questions have surfaced that refuse to go away. Today we are diving deep into every layer of this case with new developments that broke in the last 24 to 48 hours. Developments that have federal investigators from the United States Coast Guard Investigative Service going public, asking the entire country for help locating a mystery sailboat that was anchored right next to theirs on the exact night Lynette disappeared. This episode is packed with information that could change everything. We are going inside their sailboat soulmate like never before, thanks to exclusive pre-purchase footage that reveals advanced electronics most sailors could only dream of. We are examining Brian's own timeline under a microscope, looking at the forensic potential of that vessel, and breaking down why the boat itself may hold the answers investigators need. Before we go any further, I want to be completely upfront. Brian Hooker has not been charged with any crime. He has denied any involvement in his wife's disappearance, and his attorneys maintain his complete innocence. We follow the evidence wherever it leads, we ask the hard questions, and we do it with respect for the presumption of innocence while never forgetting the woman at the center of all this, Lynette Hooker. Let's start by remembering who Lynette really was. She wasn't just a name in a headline. She was 55 years old, originally from Michigan, a woman who had built a successful career at AT&T over decades. She had financial security, a 401k worth more than $650,000, and a life many people would consider stable and comfortable. But Lynette wanted more. She wanted freedom. She wanted the horizon. Together with her husband Brian, who is 58, they made the radical decision to sell almost everything they owned on land. The house, the furniture, the cars, the possessions that tied them down. They poured their resources into a 46-foot Morgan sailing sloop and named it Soulmate. For 4 years they lived aboard, traveling through the Bahamas, documenting their adventures on social media under the account name The Sailing Hookers. Their videos show paddleboarding in crystal clear waters, swimming with sea turtles, cooking meals using solar power, and laughing together against endless sunsets. It looked like the ultimate love story, two people who chose each other and the sea above all else. Lynette's last Instagram post carried the caption, "Not going anywhere for a while." It was peaceful, content, final in a way no one could have predicted. Just 2 days later, on Saturday, April 4th, 2026, everything changed. According to Brian's account, the couple had spent the day exploring in their 8-foot hard-bottom Boss dinghy. They visited Tahiti Beach, a popular shallow spot on the southern tip of Elbow Key known for its floating bar at low tide. Later they headed to the Abaco Inn near Hopetown for dinner and drinks. Around 7:30 in the evening they climbed back into the dinghy to return to Soulmate, which was anchored at Aunt Pat's Bay, also referred to as a Knott's Bay. They never made it back together. Brian told authorities that conditions deteriorated quickly. Winds increased to over 20 knots and the water became choppy. In the middle of the journey, he says Lynette bounced off the back of the dinghy. The engine cut out because she was wearing the kill switch safety lanyard, which went into the water with her. He says he yelled for her, threw a flotation cushion in her direction, but the moon had not yet risen and visibility was almost zero. He claims he anchored the dinghy and spent hours paddling and drifting, eventually covering roughly 4 miles west until he reached a boatyard in Marsh Harbor around 4 a.m. on April 5th. That is more than 8 hours after he says his wife went overboard. During that entire time, Brian did not make a distress call to authorities. He made his way through the bush and only then contacted police. Lynette's daughter Carly Ellsworth learned about her mother's disappearance through a voicemail from Brian nearly 24 hours later. In interviews with CNN, Carly asked a question that still echoes, "How do you just lose my mom?" That single question has become the driving force behind this entire investigation. Within days, things moved rapidly. By April 8th, Brian was taken into custody by the Royal Bahamas Police Force. He was detained for 5 days under Bahamian law, which allows initial holding periods and court-approved extensions. During that time, police executed a search warrant on Soulmate, seizing electronic devices and other evidence. On April 13th, Prosecutors recommended no charges be filed at that moment pending further investigation. Brian was released. He gave emotional interviews to major networks saying he would never stop looking for Lynette, that she was his life, and that his only job had been to protect her. Yet within hours of those interviews, he left the Bahamas and flew back to the United States citing his gravely ill mother. His attorneys confirmed they notified authorities, but the timing raised eyebrows given his public statements about continuing the search. Today Brian remains a person of interest and a suspect in the Bahamian investigation. He has retained additional legal counsel in Michigan and continues to maintain his innocence. Lynette has not been found. Search efforts have shifted from rescue to recovery, but the investigation itself is far from over. In fact, it has taken on a significant new dimension with federal involvement. One of the most important recent developments came from a United States Coast Guard investigative service, known as CGIS. These are sworn federal law enforcement officers who work directly with the Department of Justice. They do not get involved in every missing boater case. Their public appeal this week is highly notable. CGIS posted on social media asking for the public's help in locating the owner or occupants of a specific sailboat that was moored right next to Soulmate at Aunt Pat's Bay on the night of April 4th. According to a memo obtained by CBS News, the owner or occupants may have information relevant to the investigation. This is not a casual request. It tells us investigators believe someone on that nearby vessel could have seen or heard something critical. Maybe they witnessed the dinghy departing Soulmate. Maybe they observed activity later that night. Maybe they can confirm or contradict Brian's timeline entirely. The fact that CGIS is actively conducting interviews this week and expanding their scope beyond the dinghy route suggests they are looking closely at what happened to the anchorage itself before the couple ever left for dinner. This brings us to one of the most compelling aspects of the entire case, the boat Soulmate itself. Thanks to the YouTube channel Boat Snoop hosted by Clint Johnson, we have an incredibly detailed pre-purchase tour of this exact vessel. Clint walked every inch of it on camera long before Brian and Lynette purchased and renamed it. Multiple identifiers confirm it is the same boat, the hull identification number, the hull ID markings, the call sign, the MMSI digital identifier, and most visually striking, the two dolphin statues mounted on the bow. Those dolphins appear in both the old footage and current images of Soulmate in Marsh Harbor. There is no doubt we are looking at the right vessel. What Clint discovered on board is remarkable. This is not an average cruising sailboat. The electronic suite is exceptional. Clint specifically highlighted a FLIR forward-looking infrared thermal imaging system. This allows users to see in complete darkness, picking up heat signatures of people in the water or other vessels even on moonless nights. Brian has stated that poor visibility because the moon had not risen prevented him from seeing Lynette after she went overboard. The presence of advanced thermal imaging raises natural questions about why that technology was not used to search for her. The boat also features dual Raymarine autopilot systems, one at the wheel and one hydraulic backup, essentially giving it self-steering capability that could act as a third crew member. There is stern-mounted radar, powerful solar arrays rated around 600 watts, and enough battery capacity that the vessel can run off solar for extended periods without shore power. These systems turned Soulmate into something close to a floating black box. Satellite tracking data shows the boat went offline for approximately 11 hours on the night Lynette disappeared before coming back online. Given the robust solar setup, a simple power failure is considered unlikely by many analysts because the system would have restored itself quickly. Cloud cover or general satellite issues would likely have affected other vessels in the area as well. The most straightforward explanation for a selective 11-hour outage is manual deactivation and reactivation. Investigators now hold many of these seized electronic devices and are examining them for movement logs, system access records, communications, and Navionics GPS data that Brian himself referenced when he shared a map of his alleged dinghy route. The dinghy tells its own story. It is a rigid hull boss hard bottom model, not an inflatable tender that might flex or bounce. Brian and Lynette had replaced the original petrol outboard with a quieter electric motor. The kill switch lanyard Brian described is standard on gas engines to prevent runaway boats, but on an electric setup with a passenger overboard, cutting power immediately could hinder the ability to maneuver back to the person in the water. These details matter when reconstructing events. The boat's anchor system is another two-person operation. An electric windlass at the bow is typically controlled by foot pedals while someone remains at the helm. Brian has mentioned needing assistance to move the boat without Lynette there to handle her station. This aligns with how the vessel was designed and operated as a true partnership. Down below, Soulmate offers comfortable living with two heads, a large salon, full galley, and a master stateroom with its own aft hatch entrance. Witnesses reported seeing Brian interacting with that aft area upon his return to the boat with rescuers, possibly moving an air conditioning unit or accessing a hidden key. He later told a friend he had to break into his own locked vessel. Law enforcement observed this behavior closely. Every system on this technologically advanced boat creates data. If the vessel moved that night, if systems were manually turned off and on, if communications occurred, those records likely exist. Forensic experts understand that modern navigation apps and networked boat systems leave digital footprints that are extremely difficult to erase completely. Those footprints are now in the hands of investigators. When we lay out Brian's timeline, as investigators must, certain elements invite closer scrutiny. The couple left dinner around 7:30 p.m. Near sunset at approximately 7:40 p.m. 8 hours later, Brian reaches shore. In that time, he says he searched, anchored, paddled, and drifted through 20-knot winds. As a former Marine and experienced sailor who frequently traveled by dinghy, questions have been raised about why he did not enter the water himself or use available technology more aggressively. Carly Ellsworth has been vocal about these inconsistencies. She has also shared concerning details about their relationship, including allegations of prior domestic issues. Court records from 2015 document a mutual dispute where both parties had claims, but no charges resulted after review. Carly has spoken about her mother leaving the boat previously and having a plane ticket booked for March 11th that went unused. Financial realities also loom large. Lynette had invested heavily in their sailing life while Brian's retirement savings were reportedly depleted. The boat itself represents their primary shared asset and Brian's home. None of these elements alone prove anything. They form pieces of a complex puzzle that investigators continue to assemble. The GIS public appeal for the mystery sailboat is perhaps the most promising current lead. Aunt Pat's Bay is a popular anchorage where multiple vessels often sit close together. Someone on that nearby boat may hold the key to confirming what happened in the critical hours after dinner. If you were anchored in that area on April 4th, 2026, if you know someone who was, or if you have any information no matter how small, GIS encourages you to submit tips through their official app available on iOS and Android. Tips can be submitted anonymously. Every detail matters when a life is missing. As of today, more than a month after Lynette disappeared, her family continues to search for answers. Her mother Dorleen has spoken publicly about holding on to hope while demanding truth. Carly has hired attorneys, spoken with investigators for hours, and maintained pressure through social media and fundraising for continued searches. The Royal Bahamas Police, Defense Force, and U.S. Coast Guard have conducted extensive operations, but the vast ocean keeps its secrets until the right evidence surfaces. Soulmate remains anchored in Marsh Harbor, a silent witness floating on its mooring ball. Every electronic system, every log file, every piece of seized equipment has the potential to tell investigators what really happened on the night of April 4th. Advanced vessels like this one do not operate without leaving traces. The FLIR camera, the autopilot systems, the radar, the solar-powered networks, the satellite connectivity, they all create a digital record that modern forensic analysis can recover and interpret. If Brian's account is accurate in every detail, the data will support him. The mystery boat's occupants will corroborate his movements. The evidence will align, and this will remain a heartbreaking accident caused by unforgiving sea conditions. But if something else occurred, if the timeline differs from what has been publicly stated, if activity happened aboard Soulmate that night before or after the dinghy trip, the boat itself is poised to reveal it. You cannot kit out a vessel with this level of technology and expect to leave no trace. Lynette Hooker went to the ocean seeking beauty, freedom, and a deeper connection with life. She documented her joy with sea turtles, sunsets, and the simple pleasure of living aboard. Her final public words suggested contentment and permanence on the water she loved. She deserved to continue living that dream. Instead, her family is left with devastating uncertainty and a growing list of unanswered questions. The investigation is not slowing down. Federal agents actively pursuing leads. New witnesses are being sought. Electronic evidence is being dissected. The puzzle continues to take shape. This case reminds us how quickly life on the water can turn dangerous, but it also highlights the power of technology, community, and persistent investigation. If you have any information about boats in Aunt Pat's Bay that night, movements around Marsh Harbor, activity involving Soulmate, or anything else that might help, please come forward. Contact GIS directly. Share what you know, even if it feels insignificant. Sometimes the smallest detail breaks a case wide open. To Lynette's family, especially Carly and Dolene. Know that millions of people are now watching this story and demanding answers alongside you. To everyone listening, thank you for giving this your time and attention. Cases like this only move forward when the public stays engaged. If you are new here, make sure you subscribe and enable notifications because developments are happening quickly and we will bring you the latest the moment they break. We still have much more ground to cover in future episodes, including deeper financial analysis, additional timeline details, and any new forensic findings that emerge. Lynette, you have not been forgotten. The ocean may have taken you that night, but the search for truth continues on land and through every digital record your soulmate still holds. We will keep following the evidence. We will keep asking the questions that matter. And we will stay with this until the full story comes to light. Thank you for watching. Take care of each other, stay safe on the water, and remember that some truths refuse to stay hidden forever.